Magandang umaga, Malacañang Press Corps, and welcome sa ating press briefing ngayong araw, May 7. In today's sectoral meeting about our country's water resources and management, President Ferdinand R. Marcos Jr. directed the Department of Environment and Natural Resources and relevant agencies to focus on the 40 million underserved population found to have no formal water supply. He reiterated the importance of the Integrated Water Resource Master Plan and managing water resources in the time of El Nino and mitigating flood during La Nina. He directed the relevant agencies to further explore foreign funding for identified priority investment areas for both local and international stakeholders. It can be recalled that in April of last year, 2023, President Marcos signed an executive order creating DENR's Water Management Office. In the mapping and inventory done by the DENR, they found that 20 million are served by MWSS, 22 million by water districts, 20 million by LGU-run utilities, 10 million by private water supply providers, but 40 million are still underserved by formal water supply. He directed the continued development of National Irrigation Administration dams for multipurpose use to include agricultural irrigation, fresh water supply, power supply, and flood control. And to give us detailed information on water resource management and flood control measures, we are joined by DENR Undersecretary Carlos Primo David, Department of Public Works and Highways Secretary Manuel Bonoan, and National Irrigation Administrator Eduardo Guillen. Good morning, gentlemen. Let's start with Secretary Bonoan, sir.
Good morning, everybody. This morning, actually, I presented in the sectoral meeting with the President, the sectoral cabinet meeting with the President, actually the flood management program of the Department of Public Works and Highways. I presented to him all the projects that were being implemented with local funds and, of course, the foreign-assisted projects. In my briefing to him, actually, I said, the President asked me that, I think we have to integrate our flood control management programs with the other sectors that so that the water that we manage in the flood control do not go to the sea directly, and to the extent possible that we have to conserve and utilize it for other purposes, like for irrigation, water supply, and power if necessary. So this is a direct instructions of the President to me that we have to integrate all these components in the, particularly in the major projects, flood control projects that the department will be undertaking. So this is what we're going to do. Although there have been some flood control projects that the department has been implementing with these components, but we will, of course, enhance actually the formulation of the other structures that are needed for irrigation, water supply, and power, because the budget of the Department of Public Works and Highways over the years have for flood control program is increasingly tremendously, and actually for 2024, if I recall, actually the total budget of the department for flood control projects for both foreign assisted and locally funded runs to about, I think, more than 300 billion pesos. So I think this is a good source of what the President calls the integrated water resource management program for irrigation, water supply, and power if necessary. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Secretary Bonoan. Undersecretary C.P. David, would you like to expound on the 40 million underserved and the other priority programs that you identified?
Thank you, Daphne, and good morning, everyone. It has been a year since the President created the Water Resources Management Office, April 27 of 2023 to be exact, when he signed the executive order creating our office. The main objective of the office is to integrate and harmonize the different programs of the various agencies of government with water-related functions, such as DPWH, NIA, the water districts, LUA, and MWSS. And I'm happy to report to everybody that after 1 year, First and foremost, we have completely mapped out our resources, our water resources. Believe it or not, we are actually very rich in water resources. I should probably qualify that because we are rich in water resources during the rainy season. And during the dry season, this is our perennial issue, that there is not enough water for irrigation, even for drinking water and power generation, such as what we are now seeing in Mindanao. I'm also happy to report to everybody that over the past year, we have been coordinating with NIA, with Admin Gillian, in transforming the different NIA facilities to become multi-purpose facilities and not just for irrigation. I think this is a big step towards integrating our water resources. And then for this year, we are again integrating flood control with SECMANI, Bonoan, and DPWH. And I think this is a more harmonized way of rationalizing the infrastructure requirements that we have, serving various purposes, including water supply, flood control, irrigation, maybe even for ecotourism, power generation, aquaculture, and so on and so forth. Finally, the directive of the President this morning was very clear. 40 million of our residents, Filipinos, do not have access to a formal water supply. They still access water from springs, from creeks, some even rainwater. They rely on rainwater for drinking water purposes. And while we have big projects in line for large cities such as Bacolod, Cebu, Cagayan de Oro, Tarlac City, and so on, we have to focus on the 40 million unserved population. And there are a few strategies that we have in mind in order for us to provide water to these communities. Thank you.
Okay. Administrator Gillian, would you like to give some examples again of the multi-purpose dams that the President asked everyone to focus on as well?
Good morning, everybody. Ma'am, huwag na tayong lalayo. Ito na lang sa ating Pantabangan Dam. Actually, mag-50 years na yan sa September. Ang laki po ng impact sa atin yan. In fact, last year, nagkaroon tayo ng malalaking bagyo. Yung Egay, Falcon, hindi ho nag-release ang Pantabangan Dam ng tubig. So imagine ang effect sa Central Luzon kung yung ating kung wala yung Pantabangan Dam. So yun ang message ng ating Pangulo. Yun ang gusto niya mangyari. In fact, last year pa, kinausap na niya kami ni SECMANI Bunuan, ng DPWH at nag-identify na kami since last year pa ng pwede namin convergence ng mga projects. Kasi sabi niya, ang message natin na unity dito, simulan nga natin sa national government muna. Pagsamasamahin yung resources para sa ikabubuti ng ating mga proyekto, makatipid tayo sa implementation at mas maraming pakinabang. Again, ang gusto po ng ating Pangulo ay yung dams natin, yung water management, para meron tayong pang-irigasyon. Nabanggit kanina yung sa flood control, itong hydro water, itong power. Hindi lang yun, may aquaculture pa tayo, may pang-tourism pa. So, yun po yung ginagawa natin ngayon. Yung resources natin, nag-uusap po kami para mas marami po pakinabang at mas makatipid tayo sa implementation ng mga projects.
Okay. All right. Maricel Halili, TV5.
Magandang umaga po. May we know kung ano-anong areas yung sinasabi natin na 40 million underserved population? Saan po yung pinakamarami?
Thank you, Maricel. By far, most of them are in Mindanao. A lot of the communities in BARM still do not have access to a formal water supply. I should also mention, and this is a statistic that I hope everyone remembers, we have roughly around 7,600 plus islands, but not many people know that 5,500 of those are small islands. And many of these small islands do have communities, mostly fisher folks, and each and every one of those do not have access to water. The islands that I refer to have an area on average around 1 square kilometer. So they're really tiny islands. And this is what the President wants us to focus on.
And Yusek, you mentioned earlier na meron kayong mga strategies in mind. Ano-ano po itong strategies na tinutukoy nyo?
Sige po. Yung unang strategiya na naisip namin para sa small island barangays, at nakakasana po yan, nagsimula na kami nitong programa na to, ay bigyan sila ng fresh water, ng tubig pang inom through the desalination process. Alam po ng lahat, yung desalination, mahal po yan na proseso at saka kailangan ay may volume para medyo maibsan in each and every desalination plant.
Sorry, gaano kalaki po yung cost na tinitingnan natin for this, sir?
Depende sa dami ng seserbisyo ang tao, pero roughly 5 to 8 million pesos per plant.
Ulat Bayan, Radyo Pilipinas.
For DNR, sir, yung binabanggit niyo po kanina na gagawin po nating mga strategy para po matutukan yung 40 million, may enough budget po tayo for that. Binabanggit niyo po 5 to 8 million po yung kailangan natin.
Marami tayong iniisip na pagkukunan ng pondo, syempre sa pagtutulungan ng private sector.
And sir, may binigay po bang target si Pangulong Marcos kanina na by 2024, mapababa natin for a certain number yung 40 million?
Wala po siyang binigay na timeline, pero ang natatandaan ko sa presentation namin kanina, soon after we ended our presentation, yun mismo yung sinabi niya, right away. Right away. Ang sabi niya, hindi acceptable that we have 40 million of our countrymen that do not have access to a formal water supply.
Okay. Alvin Baltasar, Radyo Pilipinas. Please pass the mic.
Dr. David, magandang umaga po. Yung nabanggit nyo kanina na desalination, ginagamit na po ba ito doon sa mga affected areas na apektado ng El Nino, particularly po doon sa mga nag-declare na ng state of calamity?
Salamat sa tanong. Wala pa po tayong na-install na bagong desalination system dahil sa problema ng El Nino. But what I can share with you is that there are at least 20 of these island barangays that actually are already utilizing a similar system. No, so proven na yung technology. Last week, nag-meeting ako with 5 potential suppliers of desalination plants. Ang hiningi ko lang naman dito sa mga kumpanya na to, local and international, you can be a supplier and therefore focus on selling these technologies to us, or you can be a partner. Because if you are a partner, then you are part of the program of being able to sustain these equipment and that it is that you are part of the actual community development that our country wants.
Dr. David, follow-up lang po. Para lang po in layman's term po, para maintindihan din ng ating mga kababayan, ano po ba yung desalination process?
Okay. Ang desalination process, very succinctly, is the conversion of seawater to fresh water. And the main component of a desalination system is a membrane filter. So siguro tatagalugin ko, para siyang pangsala na kung saan ay through pressure ay pipilitin na pumasok yung tubig dito sa membrane na to. At maiiwan, dahil maliliit lang yung butas ng filter, maiiwan ang lahat ng salt. At ang lalabas lang ay yung fresh water. So medyo mahal yung technology dahil sa membranes, very power intensive din siya. Pero sa ngayon, yung technology has evolved so much that these filters are now modular in size, maliliit na lang sila, and they can now be powered by solar power.
Pasensya na,
Sige po.
Doktor. Yung sa desalination, so safe ito, pagka dumana sa desalination process, safe pong inumin yung tubig mula doon sa tubig na alat.
Of course, yes. In fact, yung mga bansa na wala masyadong freshwater sources, no? Middle East, for example, even the United States, no, some parts, no, they rely already on the desalination system. Pero bago itong technology na to na modular, yung mga planta na nasa abroad, malalaki yan. In fact, we have one already that is about to be online for Cebu City. Can you imagine, no? Cebu City will have its own desalination plant. But what we are referring to here are small water treatment plants, desalination plants, specific in size for the different island barangays. Thank you.
Okay, Tuesday New, DZBB.
Good morning po. Dr. David, sir, follow-up lang doon sa question ni Kuya Alvin. Sa 40 million po na mga Pilipinong walang access sa formal water supply, mga ilang units ng desalination system yung kailangan para ma-accommodate lahat itong 40 million na ito?
Okay. So qualify ko lang po yan. Yung 40 million include those in the island barangays and also upland barangays. So wala naman desalination na kailangan doon. Iba naman yung technology yung kakailanganin. And then for Mindanao, I think may source of fresh water pero walang infrastructure. At dito natin kailangan yung pagtutulungan with NIA and DPWH. Merong malaking ilog o kaya groundwater pero walang infrastruktura.
So mga, paano po yung...
We have a priority list of 65 island barangays that we want to start with. 65.
Okay. Same corner, Sam Medanilia, Business Mayor.
For Sec Banoan, na-mention po nila na target po ng DPWH na mag-allocate ng 300 billion for integrated water systems. Mas tumaas po ba to compared dun sa mga previous year? Yung January po kasi parang meron po yata information na from DNR na 250 billion yung original na budget. Bakit po kaya siya na-increase to 300 billion?
Well, let me just clarify it a little bit. No? Yung sinasabi ko kanina na allocation for flood control projects is about more than 300 billion this year. No? 300 billion projects na flood control sa buong Pilipinas na yun. No? And what the President is telling me, or instructed me actually this morning, is sabi niya, saan ba pupunta yung mga tubig pagka nag-flood control project kayo? Sinasabi ko lang kay Presidente, of course, it will go through the sea. And sabi niya, naku, huwag naman itatapon lahat yan. Kailangan i-conserve natin. Napakarami pala tayong tubig, itinatapon lang natin. So, why don't you integrate yung pag-conserve ng water natin with facilities so that we can use it for irrigation, we can use it for water supply. Yung sa instances, baka pwede rin natin gamitin for power generation. So, this is what we are going to do actually in many of the flood control projects that we will be implementing. We will have to coordinate with the National Irrigation Administration or yung sa water supply naman. For structures or mga water impounding dams, actually to be specific, that we will integrate it into the flood control programs that the department will be undertaking.
Sir, so separate po to dun sa 250 billion for dun sa water, yun sa infrastructures for generating water po. Yung flood control na 300 billion or same lang po ba?
Hiwala yun. Hiwala yun.
Tapos sir, yung meron po bang update dun sa proposed na Candaba impounding?
Yes. Yes, I always presented this in the sectoral program kasi yung Candaba Flood Control Project is ang binabalak namin dito is actually to construct what we call the Pampanga Major Flood Control Project. No? This will be a construction of a floodway from San Antonio Swamp in Nueva Ecija that will, a new floodway that will go through the Pampanga Delta area, about 62 kilometers of new floodway that will address the perennial problems of flooding in Bulacan, Nueva Ecija, and Pampanga. And this will be, we are now in the process of discussions with the Asian Development Bank for the implementation of this project.
Sir, ask ko na kung magkano yung budget for this, tsaka kung ano yung possible timeline.
This year we will be doing the detail engineering design. No? So we are now in the process of procuring the consultancy services to do the detail engineering design. That will determine actually kung magkano yung cost of the project. Ang initial estimate yata namin noon is almost about 70 billion or something. But we will do the final engineering and that will determine kung magkano talaga yung cost niyan. But what is important here is actually yung, on this project, we will make sure that yung instructions of the President that there will be the components for water supply, irrigation, sa tingin ko, water supply and irrigation will be integrated into this program.
I must add, sir, merong ginagawang niya ngayon doon, actually, for bidding namin maybe next month or this month, yung Cabiao water impounding project natin. Directly makaka-affect yun sa Candaba. So, maghuhukay kami doon, within doon sa mega dike ng DPWH, ng impounding dam, para sa aming irrigation, but malaking tulong yon sa flood control. And on top of the Talavera River, for implementation na rin namin yung Maringalo Dam. Malaki rin tulong ito kasi directly yun makaka-affect sa San Antonio Swamp. So kung nakikita ninyo yung ating methodology ngayon, yung projects ng highways, nagkukomplementary kami sa NIA para mapakinabangan natin yung tubig. Again, ang instruction sa ating Pangulo, dapat water management, hindi natatapon sa dagat.
Okay. Eden Santos, Net 25.
Kay Dr. David po, sir, is it possible po na pagpasok ng La Nina, problema naman natin yung matinding pagbaha? If in case po na mangyari yon, what are the measures po that the government should undertake to prevent massive floodings po?
Tama yung sinabi mo, Eden. Parang parte na yan ng pagiging Pilipino. Nakulang ang tubig pagka dry season, sobra naman yung tubig, baha, traffic, and so on during the wet season. We have to change the paradigm, the way we look at water. That's how I see it. The water that we see as a disadvantage because it creates flooding and all the disadvantages like crops being destroyed or traffic is actually the same water that we will require for irrigation and drinking water purposes. So pag iniba natin yung pagtingin natin sa isang resource na ganito and start impounding water, for example, during the wet season so that we will be able to use it during the dry season, we will realize that water is actually the biggest asset of the country.
So, paano po natin na maiipon itong mga darating na maraming tubig para naman po mangyari po yung inyong mga binabanggit kanina na po?
So, yun na nga yung in-explain kanina na lahat na ng facilities natin maging primary purpose niya ay flood control o kaya for irrigation, gagawin na natin siyang multi-purpose na pwede na siyang gamitin for various purposes, aquaculture, water supply, and so on. So, kailangan talaga, siguro in the past, ang planning natin was very individualistic. NIA will look at what is required for food security. No? Irrigation lang ang focus nila, DPWH for flood, kami, water supply. And now, I think it's about time that we integrate all those.
But yung po mga nabanggit ni na secretary and administrators for the long-term solution, hindi po ba? Ayun pong short-term lang kasi we're expecting na after May, magsisimula na po yung La Nina and yung problema sa baha.
Kasi Sec Manny ang sasagot niyan sa baha.
Well, alam niyo, well, I think at this point in time, I think this is, hindi natin muna siguro maiwasan yung mga pagbaha in some areas actually now that we're now, well, of course we are implementing flood control projects, no? But sinabi ko nga kanina doon sa sectoral cabinet meeting kanina that flood control infrastructure program is just one of the components to address flooding problems, no? Kasi sabi ko, nakita namin kasi that one of the causes now of flooding in many areas is actually yung for the longest time wala man nagdi-desilt ng mga rivers. So the river beds are very shallow now. So in the event of any rainfall na medyo intense, siyempre umaapaw na kaagad yan because the river beds are very shallow. The river beds are very shallow now. So we have to, one of the programs of the department is to undertake yung desilting and dredging of yung mga major rivers and tributaries actually para magkaroon ng increased carrying capacity of the rivers. But having said that, sabi ko, again, alam niyo yung mga debris, mga silt comes from erosion from the mountain sides or other from the area. So, sabi ko, we have also to integrate not only on the infrastructure sector, pero doon sa environment management actually. Kailangan natin, sabi nga ni Presidente, kailangan natin reforestation. Kasi mukhang medyo kuwan na yung mga mountain slopes natin. And so, these are the sources of erosion that fills up actually yung mga waterways natin. So, ayan, kailangan din natin that we, in coordination with the Department of DNR, we will be entering into a memorandum of agreement so that we can actually implement yung water management through reforestation, DPWH, and the other agencies for that matter. So it's a long-term process, but I think we now have to address also these kind of issues actually.
I'd like to add also, like you were saying, so uulan na naman, baka magbaha. Hindi naman ngayon lang magpaplano. Meron din kanina, ni-report ni Secretary Bonoan, maraming completed projects ang Marcos administration from July 2022 to 2024. Mga 4,700 flood control projects have been completed. An ongoing 4,700 completed. Ongoing, there are 4,200 ongoing projects, including big-ticket projects, and then, of course, some proposed ones in the line. Thank you. Katrina, raise your hand. Okay. Jean Mangaluz inquired on that.
Can I ask, how long does it take to create water impounding systems? And aabot po ba siya? Will we be able to prepare them in time for the La Nina? And likewise, how long does it take to establish modular desalination systems? And aabot po ba siya within El Nino?
Well, take the case of Halaorda. Ano po? Sinimulan yun 2019, yung mobilization, no? Eh, nagka-pandemic pa. Eh, tapos na ho namin yung 3 dams. So, actually, mabilis lang naman yan, ano? Yung mga medium, yung mga nasa 100 meters na dam, kaya nating tapusin yan ng 3 years lamang, ano po. And of course, meron din tayo mga 30 meters na dam. Mga 1 year to 2 years lamang po yan. In fact, this month alone, meron kami mga ita-turnover ng mga projects. Dito sa Bohol, dito sa May Quezon, Halaor Dam, sa May Iloilo, sa Ilocos. Maraming kaming natatapos yung mga projects na. And of course, pagka kailangan natin talaga pang malakihang solution dyan, mga long-term solution natin, mga high dams talaga. Dapat may high dams sa lahat ng major river basins natin para at least meron tayong malaking reservoir. And sa NIA naman, yung immediate solution natin, nakita rin namin na makakatulong din, yung pag pinalitan namin yung cropping calendar natin, like in the case of Pantabangan Dam, December kasi kami nagpapatanim dyan, So babaguhin namin yan, ipapasok namin yung 2 cropping natin sa October. So ma-maximize natin yung utilization ng tubig. Pag na-maximize mo yon, ibig sabihin, mas lesser yung tendency na magkabaha. Sa October, ani kami ng February, and then ani ulit ng July. So may hitting 2 birds with 1 stone. Makaka-increase ka na ng food security. Ma-maximize mo pa yung utilization ng tubig ng ating mga dams.
Just to quickly answer Jean's question on desalination. We were looking for suppliers from Israel, Netherlands, Singapore, and I was pleasantly surprised that we have 4 companies that have the technical capabilities to implement these kinds of projects. So in 4 weeks' time, pwede tayong mag-install. Dahil local na siya.
Okay. Alexis Romero, Philippine Star. Please pass the mic to the back. Eden.
Kay Dr. David, he mentioned the possibility of issuing government bonds for, is it infrastructure or water projects po ba?
Tama po. This is one idea that that we were thinking about in DNR. Sa ngayon, ang modalities ng financing ay PPP o kaya loan. And then, yung government bonds kasi are meant to fund government projects, no, priority projects. And this is another possible source of funding other than, of course, obviously, yung GIA natin. And so the directive of the President is to start studying, ask help from our development partners, World Bank, ADB, and so on, no, to implement this.
Magkano po yung debt papers na pinapropose yung
Ay,
i-issue for
wala
that?
wala pa po. Pero pag tiningnan mo yung mga government bonds ngayon, the interest that's being provided range from 5 to about 7% interest.
Pero magkano po kaya yung uutangin sa
Yung-
true bonds?
Wala pa akong idea dyan.
Mm.
Pero there are several priority projects that we have in mind, and there's a number for that, and that is what we intend to reach. No, when we
Commercial po
raise.
ba o global market yung pagbebentahan sakali?
I think we should start with local.
Sa local mo.
Oo.
Opo.
Mm.
And then what was the President's stance on your proposal to issue bonds for those projects? Is he-
Sabi niya to study the possibility of issuing bonds and ask help from our development partners on how to go about this.
so wala pa pong amount?
Wala pa po.
Okay, salamat
Gusto
po.
ko lang dagdagan yan. No? Gusto ko lang i-point out na yung sa directive ng ating presidente ngayon, malaki po ang matitipid natin sa funding. Take the case of, alimbawa, ang DPWH magtayo ng Sabo Dam. No? Yung Sabo Dam na yan, yung 500 million na Sabo Dam, makakatipid na ang NIA doon kasi mismo yung Sabo Dam na ang gagamitin namin para sa diversion dam. So yung directive ng ating Pangulo ay binibiro ko nga si Sec. Manny Bonoan pag mga Ilocano pala nag-uusap, kuripot, nakakatipid. You know? Malaki ang matitipid ng ating gobyerno ho dito. At saka mas magiging effective po siya.
Salamat po.
Katrina Domingo, ABS-CBN.
Hi, sir. Sir, aside from Cebu, meron pa po bang ibang cities that are set to construct or to operate a large desalination system?
Baka may maisip pa ako mamaya. Pero yung nasa Cebu City, it has been constructed already. They're doing the finishing touches in terms of operating it. Ganon yung kakulangan natin ng tubig sa iba-ibang parte ng Pilipinas. Buti na lang sa Cebu City, it is financially viable dahil there are 4.1 million Filipinos living in Metro Cebu. Pero yung gap natin ngayon are the smaller communities. They may not be as financially viable when you implement the projects there. But nevertheless, we cannot leave behind our countrymen. Not just because they are not financially viable, it doesn't mean that we forget about them.
Sir, ano po yung solutions natin for upland communities given na itong mga desalination modular systems are for island barangays?
Sure. For upland communities, in most cases, they source their drinking water from springs. Ito yung mga bukal sa kabundukan. In most cases, malinis din yung mga springs natin. Ang kulang sa kanila ay infrastructure to bring that water from the spring source to the community. So, ang nangyayari pa, nag-iigib pa sila from the source at kailangan maglakad. So, it's, I think, an infrastructure issue.
Sir, slightly different topic lang po on the effect of El Nino to several ecosystems in the country. Saan po natin pinaka nakikita yung malaking damage?
Oh, ecosystems. Definitely those that are in freshwater ecosystems kasi natutuyuan yung mga swamp areas natin, peatlands, and so on. Pero in terms of the heat naman, because of El Nino, malaki rin yung epekto dyan sa terrestrial forest natin na pansin nyo, medyo dumadami yung mga forest fires. Yun lang ay isang epekto na nakikita natin visually pero hindi natin alam yung epekto niyan exactly sa ecosystem kung nagsusurvive yung plants and animals doon.
Sir, last from my end, do we have a ballpark figure as to how much yung damage po when it comes to our environmental resources because of the El Nino?
Dahil tinanong po ninyo yan, magkukompute ako mamaya pag uwi ko sa opisina. But it's a very important number, no? So that the next phases of El Nino, we already know the value of what is being lost. Not just monetarily, but in terms of biodiversity. Thank you.
Kenneth Pasyente, PTV4.
Kay Yusek David po. Sir, kumustahin lang po namin kung kumusta po yung water supply sa Metro Manila sa ngayon, sir.
Sige po. I'm sure marami rin magtatanong nito. Nasa 185 meters po ang level ng Angat Dam. Ang minimum operating level, in other words, ang checkpoint natin, next checkpoint level ay 180 meters. So we are still 5 meters above the minimum operating level of the dam. Ang pinaka-problema sa tingin ko ay yung mabilis na pagbaba ng level, hindi yung actual level sa ngayon. Dahil we're still okay in terms of volume. Pero dahil na rin sa init at nag-increase din tayo ng consumption sa Metro Manila, napakabilis ng pagbaba ng level sa Angat. So ito na ngayon yung binibigyan natin ng solusyon para maitawid natin yung supply ng ating farmers sa Bulacan at Pampanga na kumukuha rin ng tubig sa Angat at yung water supply ng Metro Manila for the months of May and June bago dumating yung ulan ng July.
Okay. Okay. Melvin Gascon, Philippine Daily Inquirer.
Hello. Good morning, sir. Kay Secretary Bonoan, sir, noon pong deliberation ng budget for 2024, naging malaking usapin po yung pag-divert ng mga flood control projects, funds for flood control projects, na sinabi mismo ng DPWH, hindi po sa inyo galing yung proposal. Naging issue po paulit-ulit yung pong absorptive capacity ng DPWH and other agencies. Hindi po natatapos yung mga projects dahil hindi ma-implement na maayos. Ang ending, problema pa rin po natin ang funding, ang flooding. My question, sir, is have all of these problems been taken into account dun po sa planning na ginawa po ninyo?
Yeah, well, alam mo, admittedly, the process of getting the budget of the department goes through several stages, no? Actually, so Congress, of course, has the sabi nga nila, the power of the purse. But eventually, after all these projects have been incorporated dun sa budget namin, we have to see to it that these are vetted down, na binevet namin ito sa location of the project. So we do, of course, the necessary engineering preparations for these projects. And there are just but a few of these projects na identified additionally that have some problems, admittedly. But most of these projects are implementable. So I don't see much of any these problems actually for the implementation of projects in the department at this point in time. So everything is being implemented. We have to understand also that the implementation of projects on a year-to-year basis, we are allowed 2 years to implement. Yun ang cash budget programming na tinatawag namin, that 2 years lang po. So we have ample time actually to implement these projects.
Okay.
At isa pa pong question, sana. Last from my end, kay Administrator Gillian po or Secretary Bonoan, kung sino po makakasagot. Many years back, pinag-usapan po yung possibility na i-desilt yung ating po mga malalaking dams, Magat, Pantabangan. Rather than mag-build po tayo ng mga bagong dams, yung po bang pagdidesilt ng mga existing, feasible pa rin po ba?
Well, may pag-aaral ng nagawa dyan, ano? Na may may negative impact din yung basta i-desilt mo yung di kayo sumagat dam. Ano. So ang ating naging proposal po dyan, nag-uusap din kami ng highways na sana sa taas ng aming mga dams, naglalagay sila ng mga sabo dams para ma-prevent yung siltation. Ano po. But sa NIA naman, sa amin, meron kaming proposed na alimit dam sa taas ng ating Bagat Dam para makatulong sa sedimentation control at the same time makadagdag din ang ating tubig. So, yun po muna ang ating... and then merong mahaba ang pag-aaral yan ng JICA sa ating proposal. So habang hinintay natin yung pag-aaral na yan, yun muna yung ating solusyon. Meron pa kaming dam dyan, yung yung sa Tumawini. So yun muna yung ating... para sigurado tayo sa solusyon natin.
So wala po munang desiltation?
Wala muna akong desiltation ng malalaking dams po natin.
Okay. We're about to wrap up. As you can see, Dr. David, Undersecretary David of DNR had to leave already. Any more questions? Final questions? No? Okay. Kenneth Pasyente, PTV4.
Kay Sir Gillian po. Sir, nag-offer na raw po ng 20 pesos na bigas sa mga kadiwa sa NIA. Saan pong mga lugar po ito nag-start na, sir?
Well, actually ito inisyatibo po ito ng ating mga irrigators association. Ano po? Sabi nila nung kinakausap ko sila bilang pasasalamat nila sa napakarami nilang tinatanggap na mga ayuda sa atin sa gobyerno natin. Nag-o-offer din sila ng 20 pesos na bigas. Sabi ko, hindi ba kayo lugi niyan? Hindi, sabi nila kasi again ang input cost, simple math lang po, no? Ang cost ng inbred pag nagtanim ka ng inbred is 30,000 pesos. Ang yield nila is 5,000. So, kung gamitin mo nga naman yung 63% na formula ng NFA, mga 3,150. So, 30,000 divided by 3,150. Nasa 10 pesos lamang po ang production cost natin ng bigas. So, kahit na doblehin mo yon, may kita pa silang 100%. So, ang atin po sa NIA naman, meron din kaming project na malaki ngayon, yung ating contract farming, ano po. And yun, ganun din ang ating, in fact, ang aming estimate yan, nasa mga 29 pesos, pwede na kami magbenta. By August naman kami. And we have around 100 million kilos of rice na projected na ma-produce po natin by August. Yun po ang target ng DA. Yun po ang target natin by, sabi ng DA, July, may supply sila. Pero ang NIA, by August po kami yung 29 pesos na bigas.
Thank you. That's a good way to end this press briefing, I believe. Thank you so much, Secretary Banoan and Administrator Gillian, and of course to Undersecretary David. And maraming salamat, Malacañang Press Corps. Good afternoon.